You think the underworld is just a scary story to keep kids in line? That King Yama and his judges are nothing but dusty clay statues in a temple? Then you're dead wrong. The day you clawed your way back from hell, you discovered your body had been stolen by a scumbag. That bastard wore your face, slept with your wife, and spent every penny you'd worked a lifetime to save. Furious, you possessed a paper effigy, hoping to rip him to shreds, but all you managed was a gash across his face. Butcher Jung, he sneered as he set the effigy ablaze. You were no match for me alive. Now, you're just a worthless ghost. Just before your soul disintegrated, you saw your name slashed violently in cinnabar ink on the Book of Life and Death. Then, the judge's icy voice echoed in your ears. Your time's not up, then go. Drag back the one who stole your life. Hell's cold is like icy needles piercing your soul, thick with sulfur and endless wails. You, Zhang Shan, a poor fool just gored to death by a mad bull on the slaughter bench, were supposed to be queuing up by the oil cauldron. But suddenly, a savage force yanked your soul off the road to the underworld like a sack of trash. Dizziness, splintering pain, then blinding, long-lost light. You crashed down hard, not into icy waters or boiling oil, but onto cool, solid stone. Your nostrils filled with the stench of cheap incense, stale dust, and the faint, faraway scent of home. Struggling to lift your eyelids, your blurry vision slowly cleared. An altar, melted candles, wisps of blue smoke, and behind it your own face, crudely sketched on coarse yellow paper. Your spirit tablet stood tall behind the incense burner. The late husband Zhang Shan. The black ink burned into your soul like a branding iron. You were back in your own mourning hall. The surge of joy froze like a bucket of ice dumped over your head. The mourning hall should have been solemn and full of grief, but instead, it reeked of something off. A sickening lightness in the air. In a corner, some distant relatives cracked sunflower seeds and gossiped in hushed tones about the scandalous affairs of a widow down on East Street. But what truly froze your blood, if a soul still had blood, was the voice coming from the side door. A woman, choked with tears, trying to push someone away. "Brother Chen Shi, please, the man of this house just died." It was Chunyang, your wife. Her voice trembled with fear and helplessness, slicing into your soul like knives. Then came a man's crude, nasal chuckle, each syllable dripping with venom. "Dead? With me here. You'll feel plenty alive. That dead meat sack of a husband? A dumb butcher useless when he was breathing. And now just a pile of rotting flesh, hoarding every penny like it was gold. He deserved to die early. Come with me, Chunyang. I'll show you what living well really means." Chen Chi, that no-good street thug, always scamming and thieving. And now he dared to flirt with your wife in your mourning hall, right in front of your spirit tablet. You jolted upright, if a mass of shapeless rage could be called upright. A firestorm of fury erupted inside your soul like the infernal flames of hell. Hatred slithered around your incorporeal heart like venomous serpents, squeezing until your very being threatened to collapse. Kill him. Rip him apart. Drag that scum who defiled your altar and humiliated your wife straight into hell? The thought screamed through your mind. You lunged toward the nearest object, a paper servant folded from cheap white sheets meant for the underworld's carriage drivers. A powerful suction grabbed your soul and pulled you in. The paper body was feather light, as fragile as the last autumn leaf. Your vision thinned and warped, the world cloaked in a dead, yellow-gray hue. But you didn't care. That man's filthy words and your wife's helpless sobs were war drums, calling you to vengeance. You moved the flimsy body with awkward resolve, stumbling yet deadly, and burst out from the altar's shadow. The paper scraped against the floor with a soft hiss like the dying gasps of the condemned. What the hell? Chen-Chi turned, startled. And in that instant, you struck every ounce of force this paper husk could muster, concentrated into one desperate blow. The razor-sharp, stiff edge of your paper arms slashed at that hideous, smirking face. "Re!" The sound of tearing cloth echoed sharply. No glorious spray of gore, but your attack had landed. A long gash bloomed from Chen-Chi's cheekbone to ear, skin curling, blood gushing. He howled like a pig being slaughtered. My face. What the hell is that? He staggered back, clutching his wound as blood streamed through his fingers. The mourning hall went dead silent. The sound of cracking seeds ceased. All eyes widened in terror, staring at the paper servant who had suddenly come to life and attacked. The paper figure's eyes, two crude black dots, locked onto Chen-Chi. You couldn't speak, but the overwhelming hatred and killing intent pouring from your flimsy shell filled the room like smoke before a firestorm. Chen-Chi's fear twisted into something darker, cruel amusement and wicked glee. He'd recognized it. The shape of the figure, that gaze. He knew it was you. Slowly, he dropped his bloodied hand, letting red droplets fall onto his mourning robe like blooming plum blossoms. Then he grinned wide, toothy, and grotesque. A demon straight out of hell. A ghastly laugh rattled in his throat as he stepped toward your trembling paper body. "Zhang the Butcher? You sorry bastard. You just don't know when to stay dead. What's the matter? Can't bear to leave your pretty little wife? Or are you still clinging to those coins you stashed in mouse holes?" His voice rose, sharp and mocking, dripping with cruel delight. "Look at you! Back when you were alive, I asked to borrow a few coins for wine. You clutched them like your life depended on it. And now, you're dead. Stone cold, gutted like a pig by that bull. Your house, your money, your sweet young wife, they're all mine now. All mine." He suddenly raised his foot and stomped on your chest. Thud! The paper shell caved in with a painful groan, the shockwave rattling your soul to the edge of collapse. Worthless. Chen-Chi spat blood-tinged saliva at you, eyes wild. "Couldn't beat me alive. Even more pathetic dead. You think this crumpled scrap of paper can hurt me? Dream on." Grinning, he snatched the half-melted white candle from the altar. The orange flame flickered across his bloodied face, casting him as a ravenous demon. "Back to hell with you! Burn forever!" he roared, jamming the burning wax straight into the paper head. Whoosh! The dry body ignited instantly. Flames devoured your vision. Pain unlike anything even hell's boiling cauldrons ripped through you. You saw your arms and torso blacken, curl, and crumble into ash. Your consciousness melted like ice, tossed into a furnace, vanishing fast. Annihilation. True, utter obliteration. Just as your mind began to dissolve into endless dark, a cold, razor-sharp flash of awareness burst through the agony and hatred like a drowning man grabbing one last straw of hope. You saw it not with eyes, but with a soul teetering on the edge of death. A giant, ancient book glowing with faint yellow light exploded open deep within your mind. Heavy as stone, each page filled with tightly packed names, everyone carrying a lifetime's worth of weight. Your gaze snapped to a corner of the page. Zhang Shan. Your name? The ink was fresh. Below it, a line of tiny script. Life not yet expired. Died on the 3rd day of the 7th month. Year of the ox. Violent death. Not yet expired. Violent death. Those words hit like thunder. You still had time. You weren't meant to die, you were murdered. But before you could fully process the shock, a searing red line of cinnabar brimming with venom and condemnation slashed across your name like a red-hot brand. Zhang Shan, along with life not yet expired, was violently erased. All that remained was a glaring scar announcing your obliteration. Who erased me from the book of life and death? The agony of being burned, the emptiness of your soul unraveling, reached its peak. Just as your last shred of thought began to drift into eternal nothingness, a voice rang out cold, indifferent, and ancient as glacial stone. It echoed straight into your fading core. Zhang Shan, your time is not over. You died unjustly, your fate stolen. The balance of the underworld cannot be disturbed by petty thieves. Your body is still warm, your yang fire yet to be extinguished. Your resentment clings like a lantern guiding the soul. A pause, sharp as a blade. Then came the decree. Your fate is not severed. The underworld rejects you. You are sentenced to roam the living world for 7 days. In that time, retrieve your stolen body and drag the thief to justice in the underworld. Succeed, and your life continues. Fail, and you vanish forever. Boom! It was like an invisible sledgehammer smashed into you. Your last fragment of consciousness, on the brink of dispersal, was suddenly pulled back and condensed by an overwhelming, icy force. Then, an irresistible force hurled you out of the smoldering ashes of the paper effigy, out of the mourning hall, out of the home defiled by Chen Qi. You felt like a leaf caught in a storm, swept through the cold, deathly silence of the night, flying over familiar streets and rooftops, until you were violently thrown into the desolate, filthy burial grounds on the town's western edge. The moment you hit the ground, the impact was painfully real, like being slammed onto jagged stones. Around you stood crooked tombstones, decaying coffin planks, and flickering ghost lights. The shriek of a night owl echoed like the wail of a vengeful spirit. You, Zhang Shan, were now less than a wandering ghost, just a barely held together cluster of awareness, weaker than the lowest lost soul. The judge's 7-day limit hung over your head like a ticking execution blade. 7 days to reclaim your body, to drag back Chen Qi. In your current state, a breeze could scatter you. Despair crept into your soul like the chill of the grave. But then, a flicker of warmth, a faint yet piercing glow rose within your consciousness like fireflies in the dark. That feeling, it was Chun Yang, your wife. Wrapped in that warmth was heartbreak so raw it clawed at your soul, mixed with a desperate, all-consuming plea as if she were clutching at her last thread of hope. She was calling out to you with the last shreds of her spirit. You looked up, your intangible gaze piercing through the dark, through countless rooftops, locking onto the direction of your home. That warmth, that sorrowful call, was like a flickering candle in the wind, yet stubbornly it danced, your only beacon in the world of the living. You had to return. You had to reach her. Only by getting close could your soul absorb that threadbare power born of blood and vows. Only then could you stay intact, have even the slimmest chance. You gathered every last ounce of thought and will and began to drift toward home. There was no wind, but each movement felt like dragging yourself through thick tar, draining your already fading core. The graveyard's foul aura clutched at you like greedy tendrils, trying to devour and consume what remained of your soul. Wandering, mindless ghosts, hungry, drawn by the strange warmth you carried, began circling. But you ignored them. All you saw was the way home. Chunyang's call was your lighthouse. Time lost all meaning. It felt like an eternity. When you finally reached the low courtyard wall outside your home, Your soul was nearly transparent, ready to pop like a soap bubble. The gate was shut. Inside, deathly silence. You forced yourself through the door, like pressing through a wall of freezing water. Inside, your spirit tablet still stood on the altar. The candles were long out, hardened wax tears left behind. The air still reeked of burnt paper ash, and that revolting stench of Chen-Chi's liquor-soaked breath, mixed with the coppery tang of blood. Then you heard it, a faint, muffled sobbing drifting intermittently from your bedroom, like the whimper of a wounded creature, full of helplessness and bone-deep fear. You followed the sound, passed through the inner door, and the sight nearly shattered your soul on the spot. Chen-Chi, that bastard. He was sprawled across the marriage bed you once shared with Chunyang, snoring like a beast. The gash across his face left by the paper effigy was raw and festering, sloppily bandaged with a filthy strip of cloth. Pus and blood had soaked through it, reeking of rot. The room stank of wine and his rancid sweat. And your wife, Chunyang, she was curled on the cold, hard footboard like a leaf torn to shreds by wind. Her thin mourning robes clung to her shivering frame. She hugged her arms tight, face buried in her knees. Her shoulders trembled with silent sobs. On her pale neck, dark, ugly bruises shaped like fingerprints. Chen-Chi's brutality branded onto her skin. Rage scorched your soul once more hotter than the flames that had consumed your paper body. You wanted to lunge forward, strangle that beast with your ghostly hands, but the last shred of reason held you back. In your state, you couldn't even match a breeze. Getting near Chen-Chi, surrounded by his dense, vile yang energy, would only speed up your destruction. Get closer to Chunyang, only her. You carefully drifted toward her, filled with grief and guilt. Gently, so gently, you pressed your barely there soul against her, trembling back. And in that moment, a thin but pure warmth seeped into you like a tiny stream carrying her sorrow, her fear, and her desperate love for her dead husband for you. It wasn't true energy. More like a spiritual anchor. It didn't strengthen your soul, but somehow, miraculously, it stabilized you. Like an invisible membrane, it wrapped around your shattered form, shielding you from the graveyard's corrosion. Even more wondrous, a faint connection formed between you. You could feel her raging emotions, even see fleeting images in her mind. Your silly grin, your calloused hand offering a velvet flower. You fumbling at the stove to make her sweet egg soup like a campfire in winter. It warded off despair for a while. But that link also forced you to share her pain. Chen-Chi's sneering face, his coarse hands, his vile words, the stench of pus from his wound, these fragmented horrors bit into your consciousness like icy vipers. And you heard her silent screams, her hopeless prayers. Shenge, where are you? Help me. Take me away, I'm so scared, so dirty. The empathy was tearing you apart, but you knew this was your only chance, your only way to survive. Your only way to save her. You clung to her trembling body, ignoring the torment, desperately drawing in the thread of warmth that kept you tethered. Meanwhile, a cold, focused thought began to crystallize. You needed a way to fight Chen-Chi. That monster had not only stolen your body, he was destroying Chunyang. Every second counted. She was falling apart. Time crawled on in silence and agony. Outside, a faint glow from the morning star crept into the darkness. Chen-Chi's snores stopped. He turned over, muttering drunkenly, the stink of booze and festering wounds thick in the air. Chunyang's body went rigid. Her sobs stopped. Even her breath froze, only violent trembles remained. Chen-Chi rubbed his bleary eyes and sat up. He glanced at Chunyang curled on the footboard, and his face showed no shame or pity, only animalistic satisfaction and cruel glee. He touched the filthy cloth on his face. The wetness and pain made him snap. Fucking bad luck, he growled and suddenly kicked her in the shoulder. Cry, cry, cry. That's all you do. Bring me water and something to eat. I'm starving. Chunyang grunted, curling in pain, but didn't resist. She struggled to her feet, head down, staggering toward the door. Her submissive, broken posture cut into your soul like a dull blade. You followed her into the kitchen. She mechanically lit the stove, boiled water. The firelight reflected off her tear-streaked, ghost-pale face. Her eyes were hollow. Her hand shook violently as she ladled the water. Boiling drops splashed onto her skin, scalding it red, but she didn't even flinch. Hurry the hell up! What's taking so long? Chunchi's shout came from the main room. Chunyang flinched, panicked. She picked up the basin just as she turned. Maybe from fatigue, maybe from distraction, her foot slipped. The basin of scalding water flew from her hands. Clang! It crashed to the floor. Steam erupted. Most of the water spilled harmlessly, but a good portion splashed directly onto her ankle and shin. Ah! A scream tore from Chunyang's throat so raw it barely sounded human. She collapsed, clutching her scalded leg, her body thrashing in pain. Blisters and swelling bloomed across her skin, red, violent, grotesque. Useless! Can't even carry a damn basin. Chenchi's roar and heavy steps stormed into the kitchen. Seeing the mess and Chunyang writhing in agony, he didn't care, just seethed with rage. He raised his foot, hard shoes aimed at her burnt leg. Playing dead, huh? Get the hell up. Stop. The roar came from your very soul, exploding like a dormant volcano. You couldn't take it anymore. Your wrath surged like a sledgehammer toward Chenchi. But just as your spirit struck him, buzz, a thick, greasy red aura burst from his body. A shield reeking of blood, cruelty, and greed. Your spirit slammed into it like crashing into a spiked, burning iron wall. Agony like acid on your soul shredded through you. Ah, a scream only you could hear tore from your core. The delicate calm you'd found through Chunyang's emotions shattered like glass. Your consciousness reeled, nearly broken once again. The backlash was worse than anything you'd imagined. The foul aura on Chenchi was disturbingly powerful. Not only had it blocked your attack, it almost destroyed you. And Chenchi noticed something. His kick froze midair. He turned, bloodshot eyes scanning the empty kitchen. His nose flared, sniffing the air. That festering wound on his face looked even more grotesque in the reddish glow. Goddamn ghosts freaking wind everywhere, he muttered, annoyed. Then he kicked Chunyang again, who lay curled and trembling in agony. Bad luck, bitch. Clean this shit up yourself. I'm getting medicine. With that, he cursed, grabbed a few silver coins you'd saved in life, and stormed out, never sparing her a glance. Only Chunyang's choked sobs and your crumbling soul remained in the kitchen. Despair swept over you like a freezing tide. Attacking Chenchi head-on was suicide. That evil aura was soul poison. What now? Time was bleeding away. Chunyang was suffering and you couldn't even touch your enemy. Just as your consciousness began slipping into darkness again, the part of you pressed against Chunyang felt the warmth return. This time, it carried her pain, her cries, and one tiny, flickering thought, nearly lost in the anguish. God of the hearth, please, help me. God of the hearth? The thought flashed like lightning in the dark. The kitchen, the stove. Yes, this was your home where you, Zhang Shan, had lived for decades. Every brick, every tile bore your presence. The hearth where you cooked for Chunyang every day was a place of warmth, of life. Maybe, just maybe, the residual human presence of your life as Jiang Shan, still lingering here, could become your foothold against Chen Qi's foul and corrupt aura. The instinct to survive sparked your final burst of strength. You carefully maneuvered your cracked soul away from Chunyang, drifting like a melting snowflake toward the soot-blackened corner of the kitchen hearth. Closer, closer. The instant your soul touched the cold bricks of the hearth, something strange happened. Unlike Chen Qi's terrifying repulsion and corrosion, a faint, almost imperceptible warmth seeped from the old stones like smoke rising from dormant memories slowly seeping into the cracks of your soul. It was as feeble as a drop in the ocean, but that warmth, this breath of home, was real. It came from the life you once lived, and now, incredibly slowly, it began to mend you. More importantly, near the hearth, your soul's rate of disintegration lessened. This small corner had become your only sanctuary in the world of the living. Hope, like a flickering candle in the wind, came alive again. You clung greedily to the cold hearth bricks, drawing in every drop of that healing energy. Meanwhile, you watched Chunyang crawl toward the water jar, trembling as she poured cold well water over her scalded leg again and again, trying to numb the searing pain. Every motion made her body twitch from agony. Cold sweat soaked her mourning robes. She bit her lips until they bled, just to keep from crying out. You had to do something. Feeding off this faint house aura alone was too slow. Chen Qi could return at any moment. Chunyang needed help. You needed power. Your gaze locked onto a few wilted cabbage leaves on the floor, scalded by boiling water and trampled by Chen Qi. A reckless, near insane idea took root possession, just like with the paper effigy. But this time, the target was these scraps of discarded organic matter, stained with Chunyang's pain and human essence. They were more alive than paper. Maybe they could hold more of your power. No time to hesitate. You focused what little strength you had regained and carefully pierced the edge of a charred cabbage leaf with your soul's thread-like intent. Buzz, an odd resistance met you. Not the drag of paper, but something more organic. The plant's dying life force clashed with your cold soul. But this time, you were ready. Gritting through the burning pain, you spun your essence into the leaf slow, precise, unyielding. The process was excruciating, like molten lead poured through your nerves. But slowly, the resistance faded. You could feel your essence spreading like ink in water through the dying leaf. Success! It was just one tiny leaf, but you could feel it, control it. You repeated the process, dispersing your consciousness into other crushed leaves. A muddy bit of radish peel, even a tear-soaked droplet of water on the floor. Each possession felt like torture, draining your soul further, but you held on. By the end, your soul felt shattered into countless pieces, each maintaining a thread of control, all tethered to your flickering core. Now, you were a scattered pile of rotten vegetable bits and dirty water in the corner of a kitchen, pathetic, fragile, but burning with desperation. Time crawled on. The hearth's feeble aura kept you barely balanced. Chunyang, overcome by pain and exhaustion, collapsed into a faint tear streak still on her cheeks. Who knows how long passed until heavy footsteps, reeking of cheap liquor and wound ointment, approached. Chen Qi was back. He stumbled into the kitchen, muttering curses, a greasy paper package in hand. Fucking dump. Can't even find a proper doctor. Got this garbage instead. He kicked aside a broken basket and tossed the package on the hearth. It popped open with a wet slap, revealing foul, smelling black ointment. He didn't even glance at Chunyang lying on the floor. Instead, he went to the water jar, gulping down cold water. The chills stung his festering wound. Annoyed, he ripped off the filthy bandage soaked in pus and blood. Beneath it, the wound had worsened, flesh curling, black blood oozing, the stench now unbearable in the tiny kitchen. "Shit that hurts like hell," he growled, poking at the wound's reflection in the water's surface. Sticky pus clung to his fingers. Fear and violence flickered in his eyes. This was your moment. The second he dropped his guard, distracted by his reflection, your entire will surged to focus. The fragment of your soul within the charred cabbage leaf struck. Like a poisoned dart, the leaf launched upward and smacked directly into Chen Qi's festering wound. Slap! The leaf scraped across the rotting flesh like coarse sandpaper. Ah! Chen Qi's scream was inhuman, pierced with pain and terror. He clutched his face, leaping back like a scalded cat. What the fuck? What bit me? He spun around in a panic, eyes wide with horror. The filthy cabbage leaf's touch didn't just hurt, it disgusted him to the core. While he flailed, your consciousness in the tear-stained water droplet made its move. The drop crept silently up the wall, following a barely visible trail of dampness, heading straight for the open package of ointment. It slipped in, merging seamlessly into the sticky black balm. At the same time, your other fragments launched chaos, cabbage leaves, and radish skins whirling like debris in a storm, fluttering toward Chen Qi's legs and arms. "Get off! Get off!" He screamed, flailing like a madman swatting invisible wasps. Panicked and overwhelmed, he never noticed the ointment had been tainted. A few leaves accidentally landed near the ointment. Within moments, the kitchen fell back into stillness. Chen Qi leaned against the doorframe, panting, shaken. His wound throbbed with searing pain. The mix of rotting vegetables and pungent balm churned his stomach. He kicked the leaves away in disgust, glaring around, and finally, his eyes settled on the ointment. "Fucking cursed place," he muttered. His face twisted in pain. He stomped to the hearth, grabbed the balm without a glance, and scooped a thick smear with his filthy fingers. Inside, your cursed water droplets saturated with graveyard filth and hatred waited. Gritting his teeth, he slathered the mix onto his wound. The moment it touched, he flinched. A strange, cold, and sharp sting pricked his skin, but the burning pain quickly masked it. He rubbed it in, then tore a strip of cloth ripped from Chunyang's mourning robes and crudely wrapped his face. "Damn it!" he cursed again, convinced this kitchen was haunted. Not wanting to stay a second longer, he shot Chunyang a hateful glance, grabbed the last silver coins from the table, and stormed out. The door slammed, silence returned. You slowly withdrew your scattered fragments back to your core. That assault had drained you completely. Your soul flickered thinner than ever. The hearth's aura trickled into you, repairing the cracks, but this time, you felt no despair. You looked toward the door, and something cold and serpentine stirred inside you. That ointment, now laced with death from the graveyard, was pressed directly against Chen Qi's festering wound. The seed had been planted. Now you just had to wait. Time crawled. During the day, Chen Qi rarely returned off, wasting your hard-earned money in gambling dens. Chunyang, her leg burned and bruised, struggled to keep the mourning hall clean, enduring whispers from neighbors. When asked about her injuries, she only muttered, "I slipped," eyes downcast. Their pitying, puzzled looks stabbed at your soul. You clung to the hearth like a snake in hibernation, soaking in its aura, repairing your soul, gathering strength for the next strike. A sliver of your awareness, like a spider's thread, reached toward Chen Qi, dim, flickering, but enough. Most of the time, he lingered in a place reeking of greed and violence, the Fortune Pavilion gambling den on the east side of town. On the third evening, Chen-Chi returned reeking of alcohol and stinking of defeat. The moment he stepped in, you felt that something had changed. The dark red aura around him was churning wildly, like boiling sewage bubbling with toxic froth. Around his wound, black-gray fumes chilling and putrid twisted like vipers, clashing violently with his own corrupt spirit. Chen-Chi tore off the bandage. You saw it. The wound had turned pitch black. The flesh around it was swollen and shiny, soaked in greenish pus. The stench of rot was 10 times worse than before. Thin, black worm-like veins crept from the wound toward his cheekbones and temples. His left eye was bloodshot and yellowed, his vision blurry and dull. The cursed aura had entered his body. The wound was festering into something evil. His own corrupted blood was being consumed from within. He stared into the water jar's reflection, terror and rage in his eyes. Fuck! Fuck! What the hell was in that medicine? Quack doctors! All of them! He screamed, clawing at the wound, tearing off flesh and pus. Pain racked his body. He was terrified. For the first time, death truly loomed. No, I can't die. I just started living like a king, he babbled, eyes gleaming with madness. Find a doctor, the best one. I've got money, Zhang, the butcher's money, it's mine now. He tore through the house, ransacking everything. Even the silver you'd hidden away to buy Chun Yang a new winter coat, he took it all. That's it. The county, Rejuvenation Hall. They have miracle doctors. He clung to the thought like a drowning man to driftwood, bolting out the door in a panic, leaving it wide open. This was it, the perfect chance. Chen-Chi, wounded, unhinged, desperate. He was heading to the county through lonely roads and wild fields, and he carried your money, his life, your revenge. No more hesitation. The soul force you'd been storing for 3 days exploded. Whoosh. You tore free from the hearth, your tattered soul streaking after him, an icy shadow full of hate, clinging to his fleeing form like a parasite, vanishing into the dusk.